So welcome to this discussion, insolvency law, and basically I want to congratulate you for coming to the end of this bar course, and also thank you for saving your time to listen to this analysis. So everything comes to an end, and we have just come to an end of past the bar analysis of the first intake. So basically this is insolvency law, and insolvency law is not hard. You just read the act. You will have to understand and come with an open mind. Don't think that the fact that you didn't do it at undergraduate it puts you at a disadvantage. You are as good as any other student if you read the act and you come with an open mind. So business failure is a common phenomenon in both developing and developed economies. The failure ranges from individual to corporate businesses. In times of financial distress, lawyers are required to advise on a wide range of aspects of business rescue and insolvency. It is therefore important that students are equipped with skills to advise clients faced with financial distress. The aim of this workshop is to develop your ability to advise on an individual's insolvency, develop your ability to advise on rescue plans for insolvent individuals, conducted a diagnostic review of addressed business and identify and analyze instances of corporate financial distress, crisis stabilization and stakeholder management, and business viability assessment. Develop the ability to recognize and resolve ethical issues relating to business rescue and insolvency. So basically in this workshop, what we are looking at is basically insolvency between individuals, or maybe insolvency from companies. So you understand that even a company can be insolvent while an individual can be declared bankrupt. So learning outcomes. By the end of this workshop, students should have been positioned to identify causes and instances of financial distress, illustrate the range of options available to individuals in financial distress, identify various legal principles applicable to individual insolvency, and appreciate the several roles of insolvency practitioners during insolvency proceedings, and draft relevant documents. So workshop 1, we have Sento Mero, CEO of Zedro Telecom Limited. Also sits in the board of directors of the company. Although he's a busy corporate executive, he's also a prominent businessman dealing in timber. He often buys tree plantations from tree planters, logs, the wood, and sells some on the local market while he exports the bulk of it. From his corporate job alone, he's paid a sum of 69 million per month, with some added non-cash benefits such as tuition refund for his 3 children, a free service and fueled car, domestic servant, rental USD 3,500 for the house he buys in Kororo, utility bills, full memberships for self and spouse in a health sports club of his house, and full medical cover for self, spouse, and up to 4 children. Jans owns a fleet of luxury cars worth Ugandan 1.3 in December 2024. Jan gifted eldest daughter a Toyota Prado worth 160 million after she got a first-class degree from Leeds University. He also gifts his wife a Mercedes-Benz worth 250 million for giving birth to such an intelligent daughter. Life is good. Jans has been in the timber business for over 15 years. His main workshop sits on a 10-acre piece of land which he acquired with savings from his job, and where his matrimonial home is. His home sits on 3 acres, while the factory where he processes wood and makes wooden board sits on the other 7 acres. There is a wall fence separating the 2 establishments, but they are on the same title. His wife, Keransia Nabiri, helps him manage the business when he's in office doing his corporate job, or when he's out of country on business trips. He trades under the names Jan's Woods, which he registered as a business name. He has refused to incorporate a company because he believes Uganda Revenue Authority targets companies more than sole proprietorship. In addition to his wife, he works alongside his nephew, Petro, whom he trusts so much. His wife manages operations while Petro manages finances. Jan is in charge of overall management and business strategy. Petro also goes to the market and deals with sales and collecting cash from customers. The policy of the business is to avoid back transactions as much as possible. Most of the money collected is spent at source and used to pay casual employees, buy wood, implements, and process it into boards and wood billets. At the peak of the business, Jans was employing 100 people with 20 full-time employees and 80 casual laborers. At the peak of his business, Jans was exporting 600 metric tons worth of wood products and selling another 65 metric tons on the local market. In June 2022, he obtained a business term loan of Ugandan shillings 1.5 billion from Stanbic Bank in 2 years. The security for repayment of the loan is the title of the 10 acres of factory and home. He used 750 million to import by 100-acre forest of eucalyptus trees ready for harvest. He believed that he would make a breakthrough to enable him to retire from his corporate job and fully engage in his passion of tree farming and wood processing and export. The rest of the money he used to modernize his wood treatment and processing plant. Somehow the funds were insufficient to complete the revamping of the plant, and as a result, production had fallen. He can only produce 200 metric tons now. This is because he had removed some old machinery which he hoped to replace with newer machines. The old machinery is seated in boxes idle, but can be sold for some salvage value to lower end timber and wood producers. Sadly for him, the cost of machinery has since gone up due to the war in Uganda, where the major manufacturer of his machinery was based. To compound matters, malicious person set ablaze the 100-acre plantation he had bought. This destroyed almost 70% of the trees, and the best the destroyed trees can only be sold as firewood at a much lower price. To compound matters, the government of Uganda has since placed a ban on exploitation of timber in order to protect tree cover in Uganda. This has led to cancellation of many orders which Jans cannot satisfy. In order to try and set afloat, Jans borrowed Ugandan shillings 100 million from his wife to be able to pay workers and clear some bills. His wife borrowed this money from her brother, a prominent money lender. Jans gave his wife a post-dated check as security for the payments. Jans has recently won tender with Local Construction Limited to supply it with wood billets and marine boards on a project to construct a 38-story building with which house government offices at Bwebaja, Etebe Road. This is a huge opportunity which he cannot afford to miss. Local also made a down payment of Ugandan shillings 120 million on the order. In March 2025, Jan had no choice but to borrow Ugandan shillings 100 million from Mugaga, a money lender, at purchase wood since his forest was burnt. This loan is repayable at the rate of 6% per month. As security, he provided Mugaga the title for his country home in Muyenga district. Mugaga's policy is to transfer the security into his name if he defaults. Jans was desperate and signed transfer forms. As he borrowed the money, Ms. Jans was not informed of these transactions. Somehow the business continued but was struggling. As of his problems are not compounded enough, on 30th July 2025, Stanbic Bank debited his account by some of Ugandan 250 million to recover arrears on his loan. This was despite verbal agreements with the manager to let him first supply local construction. Meanwhile, Jans had been avoiding URA audit of the business for a tax purpose. URA issued him with an assessment of Ugandan 200 million on 15th April 2025. In the midst of these confusions, on 30th July 2025, Petro informed Jans that Ugandan 100 million, which had collected from different customers, was robbed from him at gunpoint. He said that thieves tracked him and attracted him while he entered a restaurant. Jans has unpaid salaries, NSF contributions for employees, and other debts to various suppliers. Jans' biggest hope is a 5-year, $5 million contract that he's recently signed with UPDF to supply it with wood billets, marine boards, and MDF boards for its various construction products in the country. The President of the Republic has ordered that UPDF takes over construction projects for various ministries. So we have some of key liabilities: Stanbic Bank, URA, Mugaga, among others. So task 1 investigates whether this is a cash flow insolvency, a balance sheet insolvency, or both, and discuss what specific event led to Mr. Jens' financial distress. So basically here we shall look at whether he's actually able to pay. When you look at the Insolvent Act, basically Section 3 of 2011 creates a presumption of inability to pay if the debtor has failed to comply with the statutory demand the execution against the debtor has been returned and satisfied, or whole in part, or are substantially or property in the possession or control of the receiver or some other person enforcing a charge. So basically, when we look at section 3 of the Insolvency Act, define what we call an inability to pay. And for you to be able to show what is an inability to pay, then you have to see whether basically this is a cash flow insolvency or maybe it's balance sheet insolvency. So basically these are just technical words which are used to see whether the person has maybe a cash flow insolvency, because you can find that a business has a lot of assets, but its challenge is only cash flow. But sometimes you can find that the balance sheet insolvency, the business doesn't have enough assets to cater for its liabilities. So basically, how we shall discuss the inability to pay according to section 3 of the Insolvency Act, that is 2011. I haven't seen the revised section, and also shall define a balance sheet insolvency as well as cash flow insolvency from the standpoint that some business can have a lot of assets but don't have cash flow. Advise on the potential options available to Mr. Jans to address his financial distress under Ugandan law. So basically here, since we are dealing with an individual, we shall see how do you go about individual bankruptcy. And you can have an interim protective order, which is by chamber summons and affidavit in support. Then also you can apply for, after getting an interim, because we have interim protective order, which is applied by chamber summons and affidavit in support. We also have individual voluntary arrangement, where you can also the proposals where you can also voluntarily submit under section 1 of the Insolvency Act defines an arrangement as a composition in satisfaction of an individual's debts or schemes of arrangement in respect of which an arrangement order is made. So basically those are some of the things we shall be discussing. Which interim protective measure are available. I have talked about interim orders, discuss the procedures involved, draft the necessary documents, which basically the chamber summons. Task 2, what are the implications of the security interests held by creditors such as Stanbic Bank and Magaga on Ms. Jan's personal assets. So basically when you look at the Insolvency Act, it basically gives you the priority of creditors. It gives you priority of creditors from secured to unsecured to NSSF. So basically we shall be applying that section of the Insolvency Act on to see this priority of different creditors. Describe and justify the statutory rankings of creditors in the fact sheet in the case. The assets of fund of Jans to be distributed among creditors in insolvency proceedings. So basically also the Insolvency Act will be guiding us, because secured creditors take precedence over unsecured creditors, but also shall say like the Act prioritizes the payment of employees, NSF, URA, among others. But the Insolvency Act clearly stipulates these different kind of arrangements. Identify the available transactions in fact sheet and what is the procedure of setting them aside. Even the Act defines what are avoidable transactions. For example, those transactions which the person might have done. When you look at the Act, it defines what are avoidable transactions, and also it gives you the procedure of how can you basically set those transactions aside, and often necessary documents for see above. Then task 3, assume the bank is worried about how the low value of land and the dispute around it. It is desirous of recovering from business as a whole. Advise it on the process of commencing bankruptcy proceeding against Jans and often necessary documents. So basically we shall see how can a creditor commence bankruptcy proceedings against an individual, because it can either be commenced by an individual. It can either be commenced by a creditor, and we shall also be looking at this and basically how can a creditor commence insolvency proceedings. In the event that a bankruptcy petition is filed by or against Jans and the creditors are desirous of establishing the assets of Jans, just in case he's hiding some assets, how would they go about this one? So basically here they're going to petition for bankruptcy, because even the creditors can petition for bankruptcy. Then we shall look at the Insolvency Act and see how can they go to establish the assets of this person. What are the effects of the Mr. Jans being declared bankrupt Once it's declared bankrupt, that means the loss will lie where it falls. So you cannot go to pursue him to pay your debts. How can Jans be discharged as bankrupt, and what chances in the circumstances? So basically, how we shall apply either cash flow insolvency or maybe balance sheet insolvency and see whether it's possible that he can be discharged bankrupt. Because the courts will look at inability to pay the debts as and when they arise. What roles would an insolvency practitioner play if Miss Jens decided to file for bankruptcy? So basically, the insolvency practitioners play a lot of roles once a person is declared bankruptcy to include paying all the creditors with the necessary amounts. But also the Insolvency Act gives us the sections for that. Assuming that there was an option for him to restructure his debt and business, what options would Mr. Jens have? So basically, we shall look at how can he restructure that debt. Task first, assuming an insolvency practitioner approached by Jans, replying on the diagnostic review guidelines available to you with the workshop paper. What crisis stabilization mechanisms would you advise on this case and why? So basically, we shall have to look at the diagnostic review guidelines which we are attached, and then we shall see how we can basically apply them. Applying the diagnostic review guidelines, conduct and present a business viability assessment showing all the parameters for your assessment. So basically, it's a matter of applying these guidelines to come at a conclusion. So basically, as far as workshop 1 is concerned, we are dealing with individual bankruptcy. Then workshop 2 develop the ability to advise on the practical aspects of corporate rescue, develop the ability to undertake administration and receivership, develop ability to wind up and liquidate companies, develop skills to support business restructuring decisions, and develop the ability to organize escrow issues. Part A, Investments Uganda Limited is a private limited liability company. It was incorporated in Uganda in January 2020 for purposes of supplying concrete, madam, and aggregate to Samoto, the Japanese company, which is lead project contractor for the clock tower and Zambia interactions. The project has come to an end and there is no more business of a magnitude to interest the shareholders. The shareholders, Mr. Ken Kasente and Mr. Abrahams Nsimbi, have decided to cease operations and close the company. Ken and Abrahams are also the directors of the company. Task 1, assuming you're employed as an advocate, the firm is one of the premier firms in Uganda with a team of 65 advocates and 8 professional advisors hired as consultants in several fields, including accountancy, banking, investment, and taxation, among other areas of expertise. Your firm has also been retained for purposes of closing operations of the company. 1. What is the most appropriate manner of winding up operations and closing business? So basically, here we shall look at corporate insolvency, and we shall look at provisional administration under section 139. Where there is appointment of a provisional administrator. We shall also look at a provisional administrator is appointed upon granting the petition of interim protective order. We shall also look at interim protective orders, among others, which are the remedies which can be utilized by a company. So what are the likely challenges the advocates handling these assignments, considering the fact that they are also company secretaries? How can this challenge be overcome? So basically, how we might likely going to see a conflict of interest, reference documents to authorize and commence the process of winding up of the company. Basically, we shall look at a petition for insolvency, for declaring the company insolvent, explain the process how until the company is eventually removed from the register of companies. Assuming you have to write to registrar. Assuming that the insolvency practitioner retained to handle the process, one above realizes that the company has liabilities than assets. He also realizes that the director has misled him and had some vital information about the creditors of the company. Advised on the duty of the insolvency practitioner, considering his discovery and potential liability of the creditors, and the procedures that will now follow the company is unable. The procedures that will follow now that the company is unable to pay its debts. So basically, winding up the company shall be proceeding under the Companies Act. Then procedures that will follow now that the company is unable to pay its debts, where we can go for insolvency. Part B, in January 2020, we have Jans and his wife, Miss Jane. Incorporated company, Jan's Investments Limited. The company main respective is to deal in construction. It intended to take advantage of the construction boom, especially government construction. The company appointed a board of 5 members of effective managers. Challenges, we can see the challenges: delayed payments from government, internal disputes and leverage, as well as creditor action, possibility of recovery. We have banks, we have private sectors, suppliers, landlords, NSF, employees. We are a group 2, what legal business rescue options are available to deal with the situation. Assuming administration is the chosen option, advise on the process leading to administration, and further potential hurdles and how they can be overcome. And based on your discussion above, discuss what ought to be included. So here we shall look at what we call provisional administration under the Insolvency Act. Then Group 4, potential investors and lenders, advise on how, bearing in mind the risks, the interests of the potential ventures capital investors can be secured. What legal risks must be addressed in order to protect their investments. What is the power and what roles do the following play in the business rescue processes. And professional advisors or who are insolvency practitioners, advise them on the qualification and process of members' voluntary liquidation. Assuming Stanbic Bank is considering liquidation of the company, advise on the liquidation options, and relying on legal provisions and decide the cases, advise on the advantages and risks of liquidation, and advise on the ESCO standards. So basically that's what we shall be covering with workshop 2. This is insolvency, so it's not too hard once you read the act. But I don't want to make a long video because most of you don't always watch long videos. So let us keep it brief here, and we call it a meeting. Much of this discussion and analysis will happen in our discussions. In case you want to be part of the discussions or our mastermind group or maybe our mentorship program, you can reach me on the numbers on WhatsApp, which is 07567678284. 07567678284. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment, and wish you success in your IAs.